Mishnayos Yevamos, Parakud Gimel, chapter 13, Mishnah Vav, Mishnah 6. Okay, Mishnah Vav. Right there. Okay. All right. Hamegarish asa isha. If a person divorces his wife, v'chazira, then he takes her back. And then she dies without children. Then he dies without children. Okay? So he married a woman, divorced her, took her back, and died without children. Muteras layavam. She is permitted to the yavam. Now, what's the issue? What's the whole discussion? When he divorced her the first time, she now became his brother's wife, that it was forbidden to him. The fact that his brother's not married to this woman anymore doesn't now permit her. Even Grushas Achiv, the woman who was once married to your brother, is forbidden. And now that they're not married anymore, there's no mitzvah of Yibam either. So it's not like when they were married there's the potential of Yibam. Right? At this point, there is no potential of Yibam anymore. And at this point, you've got the prohibition of your brother of one's brother's wife. But then he took her back. And then he died. And again, he was without children the whole time. So we say that since, even though they had been divorced at one point of time, and at that point of time, she had a full-fledged, so to speak, prohibition of your brother's wife, nonetheless, being that they remarried, and after they remarried, that's when nonetheless, since they remarried, the fact that now that he dies without children says that the mitzvah of Yibam overrides the prohibition of one's brother's wife, as it always does. The fact that there was once a marriage beforehand that ended in a way that the prohibition was there doesn't make a difference in the sense that when they remarry, the fact that they were remarried and now he dies without children, now there is the power to Yibam to go ahead and say the prohibition of one's brother's wife, although at one point of time it was, so to speak, irreversible. It doesn't make a difference regarding the fact that now that they remarried and he can do Yibam on her. The way that the Bartanura says it is that the first marriage, so to speak, doesn't play any kind of role in the Yibam that takes place now. Because the first marriage, it ended in a way that the prohibition would be there. But that doesn't matter. The point is that the Yibam is from the second marriage. The second marriage was just fine. And therefore, it will override the prohibition of one's brother's wife. Again, even though beforehand it was so to speak at that point irreversible. Now, Rebbe Lezer Oiser, the sage Rebbe Lezer says, nope, forbidden. He can't do Yibam on her. Now, this is going to be a rabbinic decree, because this is a rabbinic decree, as we will see soon why. Which would mean, if it's a rabbinic decree, he can't do Yibam, he's going to have to do Chalitza. Rebbe Lezer says that if the person divorced his wife, took her back, and then died without children, Rebbe Lezer says the surviving brother may not do Yibam. Next case. Let's say the case is he was married to the orphan girl, which means he was married with a rabbinic marriage. And then he divorced her, as we said before. He divorced her. Then he took her back. Again, the first opinion of the Mishnah says, as it said before, she's permitted to the oven. The fact that there was a divorce in the middle doesn't make a difference. There was a val rabbinic marriage afterwards, and therefore there is a rabbinic yibum. Okay, Rebbe Lezer Oiser. But again, Rebbe Lezer says, Aser, forbidden. Can't take her. The yavam cannot perform yibum on her. Again, it's really both the same case. One is the case of a Torah marriage, one is the case of rabbinic marriage, but at the end of the day, we're left with the same argument about whether the yavam can do yibam on her or not. What's the issue? For that, we need the next case. Ketana Shasia Avia Viniskarsha. A girl who is a Ketana minor, her father married her off and she was divorced. The Torah gives the power to a father to marry off his daughter who is a Ketana, who is a minor. That is a Torah, that's a Torah law. And he can, and the marriage and the kedusha, the betrothal, takes place between the father and the husband. He gives the father the money, and that now, and with that, the father marries off his daughter to this man. She's betrothed to him, and then later on they do chuppah. But in this case, she got married to the guy and she got divorced while she was still a minor. The halacha is that once she is divorced from her marriage, the father has no more power over her anymore. He cannot marry her off anymore, according to Torah law. She's now on her own, which really, if she's a minor and she's on her own, according to Torah law, she really can't do anything. But the same way we said before, when the father dies, that there is the ability for a rabbinic kedushin, for a rabbinic marriage. So here again, if she wants to, she can get married. It seems like she can decide on the marriage, and it's going to work rabbinically. Okay? So what happened here is like, the Mishna says like this. Ketana shisia avia v'niskarsha. A ketana, a minor who her father married her off, and then she was divorced. Ki yasoyma b'chaya av. She is like an orphan while her father is alive. I mean, she's got a father, but she's like an orphan in the sense that there's no one who really has the jurisdiction of marriage over her, according to Torah law. But as we said, according to rabbinic law, she can marry. Now, she did that. She did that. She got married. Hechazira, he took her back. Again, rabbinic. Now he's before there was a Torah marriage. Now there's a rabbinic marriage. Divrei hakoil asura liyavim. Everybody agrees here that she is forbidden to the yavim. And the explanation is pretty simple. When she was first married to this person through the father, she was married to him according to Torah law. After they divorced, now comes the full-fledged, irreversible, so at this point, irreversible prohibition of one's brother's wife. There's nothing to talk about. She was divorced from the man. If the man were to die, she couldn't marry his brother. There's no mitzvah, there's no mitzvah of yibum. And therefore she's forbidden. Oh, but now what does she do? She marries the same guy again, but only according to rabbinic law. So the rabbinic marriage isn't going to have the power to knock off the Torah prohibition of one's brother's wife. Because, based on what? According to Torah law, she's not even married. So according to Torah law, there is no marriage to say that a yibum can knock off the prohibition of one's brother's wife that took hold after he divorced her. Everybody agrees to that. There's nothing to talk about. Because there's nothing that has the power to take off, there's no marriage here, according to Torah law, to take off the Torah law prohibition of one's brother's wife. Based on this case and based on this halacha, that's what Rebbe Lezer said before, forbidden. Rebbe Lezer wanted to make sure that there's no confusion. He wanted to make sure that no one should come to this case about the minor who was married by her father, then divorced by her husband, then remarried according to rabbinic law, where she cannot do, where yibum is forbidden. He wanted to make sure that any case similar to that should be forbidden also. And therefore he said in the first case of the Mishnah, when he married a woman, regular woman, we married a woman, okay? And he took her back. And which means there was a Torah prohibition of one's brother's wife after the divorce, but again, then there was a full-fledged marriage according to Torah law. That should be able to knock it off. Rebbe Lezer said, we don't want any confusion with the third case we just had, and therefore forbidden. And the same thing, if let's say he married a girl who was a minor, it was a rabbinic marriage, he divorced her, then he took her back. So again, we're dealing again. There was a rabbinic prohibition of one's brother's wife because the whole marriage to begin with was midrabanan. Then he married her again, rabbinic marriage. Why not knock it off? Says Rebbe Lezer, you can't. We want to avoid any kind of confusion with the last case that we had, and therefore he forbade even these cases. So basically, you've got a situation where there's the third case is there's a Torah prohibition of one's brother's wife, and there's a rabbinic marriage. Everybody agrees the rabbinic marriage cannot knock off the Torah prohibition. The question is, though, in a situation where both marriages were the same in status, the first marriage was a Torah marriage, and the remarriage was a Torah marriage. Or the first marriage was a rabbinic marriage, and the remarriage was a rabbinic marriage. In that case, Rebbe Lezer says, even though, according to, it should work because the new marriage is as much a marriage as the prohibition that was there that came into effect before. Nonetheless, he said we don't want to confuse it with the case where the marriages were not the same, and therefore he forbade all cases. All right. Now, we are still continuing here with the Chofetz Chaim talking about the different conditions that have to be met before you can go ahead and tell other people about how someone did something wrong to you. And yesterday, when we were talking about the condition about Toyelas, Hashbir for constructive purpose, the Chofetz Chaim said that it's possible that even just to, so to speak, get it off your chest, to relieve yourself of the tension and get it off your chest about what he did to you, that perhaps can also be considered a constructive purpose. Now, Prat Hashishi, the sixth condition. You can find another way of gaining what you need to gain, accomplish what you need to accomplish, by not having to tell other people about it. You're not allowed to now say it to other people. Now, let's say a guy, he's got to tell the story. There's no way to get around it. But he can kind of minimize. He can make it less. He can decrease the severity of what he did when he tells it over to others. And by kind of minimizing, making smaller what he did, it will not affect the purpose that the benefit that you're trying to get by telling other people. Mitzvah he sheyaktin v'lo yigala kol koloin l'fnei Hashemin. Then he says mitzvah he. It sounds like it's the proper thing to do. It doesn't sound like it's an obligation to do, but okay, that's my addition. But mitzvah, it's a mitzvah to actually make it less and not to basically lay out the wickedness of this person in full force. Without putting the person down so much, you can get the same benefit. Why put him down so much? Prat Hashvi, and the seventh condition, shlo yisabev lehezek ayidei sipuray yesh mikviyadin. It has to be that no more damage can come to the person you're speaking about, more than if, let's say, you took this guy to Beis Din. Meaning, let's say this guy somehow or another wronged you, and if you took him to Beis Din and he was found guilty, X amount would happen. He'd have to pay you X amount. All right. Mm-hmm. Now, by telling the other people, now the situation is you can't go to Beis Din. You want to go to other people to help you out. So when the other people hear about it and they're going to help you out, you know what they're going to do? They're going to extract even more money, let's say, than what the Beis Din could do. Then you can't say it over. If at the end of the day, he gets affected more than what the law allows to happen to him for what he did, then you can't say it over. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Oh, so when you say he told others,